A strip of land off the North Carolina coast so narrow you can see ocean and sound at once from the middle of it. Running between them on a two-lane road is one of the most dramatic coastal drives in the country. The Outer Banks is not a beach resort. It's a barrier island chain with wild horses, active lighthouses, a graveyard of ships beneath the surf, and the exact field where human beings first flew. Most people drive past all of it on the way to the pool. This guide covers what the Outer Banks actually is, the free tier, where spending money makes sense, how to get around without wasting a day, and what to skip. I'm Andrew with the Earnest Traveler. Let's get into it. And if you're new here, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. It's the single best thing you can do to support this channel and help me keep making free travel guides like this one. I put out new videos 3 times a week, covering destinations all across the country. And if you're planning a trip anywhere in the US, there's a real chance I've already done the research for you. I do the digging, you get the destination. Hit subscribe and you won't miss one. The free tier, Outer Banks, Cape Hatteras National Seashore, 72 miles of protected coastline, no entrance fee, no day pass required. Federally protected land with no development inside the boundary. The lighthouse at Cape Hatteras stands 198 feet tall, the tallest brick lighthouse in the country, and was moved 1/2 mile inland in 1999 because the sea was getting too close to the base. The relocation took 23 days and made national news. Jockey's Ridge State Park in Nags Head. No admission. The largest active sand dune on the east coast rises above the island with views of ocean and sound from the top. Hang gliding schools run out of here, which makes sense given the context. At sunset, the dune goes colors that most people only expect to find in the desert. Wright Brothers National Memorial at Kill Devil Hills. $10 per person. This is the exact field where Orville and Wilbur made the first 4 powered flights on December 17, 1903. Bronze markers in the grass show where each flight ended. The first covered 120 feet. The fourth covered 852 feet in 59 seconds. That field, knowing what it took to get there, is worth the drive from anywhere on the East Coast. 2 free, 1 $10. Aviation history, the tallest lighthouse on the continent, and the East Coast's largest active dune. Now let's talk about where money opens up the parts most visitors never find. Budget tier, under $30. Ocracoke Island by ferry. Ocracoke is the southernmost inhabited island in the Outer Banks. No bridge, accessible only by boat. The state ferry from Hatteras is free and takes about an hour. The village has no chain restaurants, no traffic lights, and wild ponies that have lived on the island for over 400 years. Descendants of Spanish Mustangs from colonial-era shipwrecks. The ferry from the mainland to Ocracoke charges a vehicle fee and requires a reservation. Current rates are at the description link. Cape Lookout National Seashore via passenger ferry. South of Ocracoke, no vehicles, no development, no services. Private ferry operators run from Harker's Island and Beaufort at rates that vary by operator and season. Links are in the description. What you reach on the other side is undeveloped Barrier Island. Wild horses on Shackleford Banks, a lighthouse standing since 1859, and a beach that stays nearly empty because most people are not willing to take the ferry. That is the point. Soundside kayaking and wild horse tours by water. The Currituck Sound is calm, shallow, and protected, ideal for paddling without prior experience. The wild horses in Corolla on the Currituck Banks are accessible by kayak, which is one of the more unusual things available on this coastline. Guided tours and rentals run from multiple outfitters throughout the Outer Banks area. Rates vary by duration and operator. Current pricing from outfitters I reviewed is at the description link. It's a very different version of the Outer Banks than the one most people get. The budget tier on the Outer Banks rewards effort. The ferry, the kayak, the off-bridge island. Things that take extra planning are exactly the ones that separate this trip from everyone else's version of it. Mid-range tier. Worth the spend headboat fishing out of Hatteras or Manteo. Headboats are shared charter. You pay per person rather than booking the whole vessel, which brings the price from several $100s down to something closer to $50 to $100 per person, depending on the trip. Inshore trips run closer to shore in calmer water and are more accessible for people without sea legs. Nearshore trips head out toward the Gulf Stream and target larger pelagic species. Either way, you're on the water in a way the beach side of the Outer Banks simply doesn't offer. Current rates by operator and trip type are at the description link. Off-road vehicle permits on Cape Hatteras National Seashore. The permitted 4x4 sections put you on beach stretches with no crowds. No umbrella rows, no vendors, just coastline. A permit runs around $50 for a weekly pass and requires an actual 4x4 with correct tire pressure. The National Park Service website has current permit pricing and conditions. I've linked it in the description. You're accessing sections of beach that the majority of Outer Banks visitors never reach. Roanoke Island and the Elizabethan Gardens in Manteo. Roanoke Island sits behind the barrier strip, and most people drive past it entirely on the way to the beach. The Elizabethan Gardens are a formal English garden built as a living memorial to the lost colony. 117 people who settled here in 1587 and vanished entirely by 1590 without explanation. One of the enduring unsolved mysteries in American history. Admission runs in the low to mid-teens per person. Current pricing is at the description link. Fort Raleigh National Historic Site adjacent to the gardens covers the same history for free if you want the context without the garden ticket. Mid-range here is about access to water, to remote beach, and to history that most visitors miss because it is sitting right behind the shoreline they drove past. Luxury tier, if you're going all in. The Sanderling Resort in Duck. The northern stretch of the Outer Banks stays quieter than the central banks. Duck and Corolla require driving further north, which filters the crowd. The Sanderling sits at the north end of Duck with oceanfront and soundfront rooms. It's built for people who want the Outer Banks experience without the Nag's Head Strip version of it. Rates vary significantly by season. Check current pricing at the description link. Fall shoulder season delivers the resort at reduced rates with almost no crowds. A week in a private rental house on the oceanfront. This is how people who actually know the Outer Banks do it. The rental market here is structured around weekly Saturday to Saturday stays. Houses sleep 8 to 16 people, have private pools and beach access, and when split across a group, the per-person cost beats any hotel in the area. Booking a year ahead for peak summer is not unusual. May or September gives you the same houses at substantially lower rates. Companies like Outer Banks Blue and Vacasa handle the rental inventory. Hang gliding instruction at Kitty Hawk Kites. Multi-day packages through the country's largest hang gliding school, operating from Jockey's Ridge, run into the mid-hundreds per person for a full instructional series. You are learning to fly off the same dune that brought the Wright brothers to Kitty Hawk in the first place. That is not a context-free experience. The Outer Banks free tier is genuinely exceptional. Cape Hatteras. National Seashore alone is worth the drive from anywhere on the East Coast. The money tier adds water access, remote beach, and comfort. You don't need to spend much here. If you do spend on something that gets you off the main road. That is the Outer Banks. 72 miles of protected coastline, wild horses, the birthplace of flight, and a sound side that most people never see. Links to everything are in the description below. If this video helped, hit like. It helps the channel more than most people realize. Subscribe for the next one.